If you all don't mind, I'm going to come down and talk to our first communicants today. They all look wonderful in their dresses and their suit. My mom's here, not to give her a hard time, because I was adamant I had to wear a jacket, so I was right there with you. I had to have my jacket on. I was told I didn't have to, but I told my parents I will wear a jacket for my first communion. And also, I'll tell all our first communicants, I recently watched a video of what happened at my first communion, and I was really curious about what I would have done after I received Jesus for the first time in my entire life. And I was like, oh, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Do you know what I did? I put my head on the pew in front of me and looked bored out of my life. I hope I'm not the same way now. See, I gotta laugh, okay. Now, in our second reading from the first letter of St. Peter, he gives us this image of Jesus Christ being the cornerstone, and that he's that living stone that everything builds, and then we become these living stones and becomes this living organism. We become the body of Christ, and it is, of course, the body of Christ that you will receive today, and you are called to receive Jesus and become him who you receive. Now, think of a body. Imagine this is going to take some suspension of reality here. Now, imagine I was able to just reach and take my heart out of my chest. If I separate my heart away from my chest, that would not be a good day for me, would it? Mary's looking at me, she's like, absolutely not, don't do that. That's a bad idea. No, it's probably not good, because if I separate any piece of my body, it's probably not going to be a good day. If I decide to let me just take my arm off today, it's going to make my life a little more complicated. If I just take my head off. Sometimes it feels like I'm running without my head, but that's beside the point. No, if I take these things, if I remove these things, the rest of my body suffers. The rest of my body doesn't know how to take that. If I were just take my heart away or something like that. Now, every single one of us is one of those living stones that builds the body of Christ. And every single one of us has an important role to play. And now, St. Therese, she was contemplating and praying about, what part of Christ's body am I? And she went through, she's like, I'm not a toenail, I'm not a finger. Your brother Antonio, he might be a toenail. I love you, Antonio. He might be a toenail. But it's still important. If you don't have a toenail, it really hurts. So we still need you, Antonio. We still love you. The body of Christ needs you. We all need all of these parts. And to think of it this way, if you don't act as the Lord is calling you, if you don't become who you are receiving today, when you don't come to participate here with us at this altar, it's as if I'm taking my heart, taking it out of my chest. I'm separating an important part of the body of Christ. You are an essential part of the body of Christ. And the whole body suffers when you are not here. The Lord rejoices to give his very body and blood to you today, that you are becoming even more so like him in all things. You are receiving and you are in communion with the body of Christ. You are that essential part of the body. And in our second reading, it says that you are called to offer those spiritual sacrifices worthy for the Lord. And every time we gather for Mass, we're called to offer our own spiritual sacrifices to the Lord. And so I know for myself today, I'm praying for all of those who will be receiving the Eucharist for the first time. I'm praying we have 3 men who will be ordained priests in just a few weekends. I'm praying for them. I'm praying for all of my family and my friends. I'm praying for all those who I will serve this summer when I go away to Fort Knox. I'm praying for them, and I'm able to bring those sacrifices, those prayers, all of my hopes, my dreams, my joys, my sorrows, all of those things I'm able to bring to the altar. And it's not just because I'm a priest. Every single person in the body of Christ is called to bring their prayers, their spiritual sacrifices here to unite it with Jesus there on the altar. Do any of you, our first communicants, have something that they're praying for? Is there something that you're praying for that you're bringing here to this Mass? What's someone praying for? Your dog. Your dog definitely needs prayers. Jesus, all your cousins, and me. I made it on the list. It's a good day. Mary, what you got for me? Praying for me. Listen, I believe that Jesus called me to the priesthood because he realized that a wife was not enough to pray for me to get to heaven. I needed the entire body of Christ praying for me if I was going to make it to heaven. So please, all of you, if you would add me to your spiritual sacrifices here at this Mass, I need all of your prayers, the entire body of Christ, praying that I will one day make it to heaven, please God. Now, Jesus is that cornerstone of the body of Christ, that temple of living stones. But St. Peter also told us something else. He says that those of us who are not a part of that living temple, part with those living stones, with Jesus as our cornerstone, becomes a stumbling block. Think of that, maybe parents, I'm sure, especially parents of our first communicants, I'm sure they never leave anything in the middle of a room somewhere for you to trip on, ever. Mary's saying, yeah, I don't do that. But you know what it means when you're walking through, especially if like the house is dark or something, and then you trip over something. It's not a fun thing. If we're not a member, if we're not actively a part of the body of Christ, then that cornerstone, which is supposed to build us up, becomes a stumbling block. Because we start to follow our own pride, we start to go our own way, and it's all about me, and then I don't want to be a member of this body of Christ. I don't want to be another living stone in this temple of Christ. I want to do everything my way, my own way, and then that cornerstone, which is immovable, becomes a stumbling block and gets in my way, and I don't like that very much. Now, of course, for our first communicants, I'm sure you would never feel that way. And you want to be, that's why you're here to receive the Eucharist for the first time. You want to be that member of the body of Christ. You want to become him who you are receiving today. You want to become an active, full member of the body of Christ. And we are so happy to celebrate this with you today. And for everyone that is here gathered at this Mass, I encourage you all to ask yourself that question: what are my spiritual sacrifices that I'm bringing here to this altar? How am I acting as that member of the body of Christ today, here at this very Mass? What are those joys, hopes, all of those things, desires? What are those sorrows and losses that you're experiencing right now? Who are those people in your life that need prayer at this moment? Can you offer those prayers? Can you unite yourself to that perfect sacrifice of Jesus Christ, that we might be acting as that body of Christ, and may we never be separated away. May he never be a stumbling block for us.